Yeah, I wanted to just say something slightly broader about how we change minds, because we are changing minds. So, you know, around the world there are some very, very challenging situations, and I want to leave us with a little bit of optimism. So right now there's a review going on in Ireland, and it's being conducted for Sport Ireland by the same consultants who conducted the UK Sports Council's review, which gave us 2 years ago a document that says, rounds up all the science. This is by the Sports Council Equality Group. It rounds up all the science. It says you cannot balance these things, you know, as John talked about, fairness, equality, fairness, inclusion, safety. That's not a question of balancing them. You have to choose between fairness for women and girls or inclusion in the female category of trans-identifying males. You can't have both. But of course, you can have inclusion of trans people in your sport, but not in the female category, while retaining fairness. And that was a catalyst, and that is such a great, objective, independent piece of work paid for by the government that we refer everyone to that, including international federations, and we know that international federations are looking at that. We know that, they tell us that. And so it's a resource for all of you too, because it's something that you can point to that isn't from an activist group. It's government funded, it's independent. So that's one thing. The other thing is I wanted to give you a couple of examples of where I have literally heard people change their minds, right? So one is, I won't name the sports, but these are people from governing bodies in senior positions. By the way, not diversity and inclusion people. They don't change their minds. They deal with one group at a time, and they're on a mission. All the evidence from the Sports Council Equality Group work and from all of our experience, I think, is that it's people who really run sport and who know about sport, who understand this, get this, and are willing to take a position. The diversity people, they're on a different mission, right? So I mostly find that it's when I talk to chief executives or board members or directors of participation or whatever that we see change. But I did have one conversation with a diversity guy, been in that professionally his whole life, and while we talked, he said, and he was in quite a rough sport, it was like I could hear the cogs moving in his head. He said, oh, hold on, this is quite challenging for me because, you know, I've always been about increasing inclusion, and now you're telling me that maybe inclusion of trans people in the males in the women's team could lead to exclusion of females? Yes, you've got it. And he said, this is uncomfortable for me. But it's quite important, it's good that he said that, but it's a really significant thing because we keep banging on about how so-called inclusion can lead to exclusion or to self-exclusion. And a lot of people just simply haven't thought about it. So that's one thing. The other thing, example, and I know this chief executive has widely shared her experience with other chief executives in governing bodies because they're all in these WhatsApp groups, you know, talking about their issues. At the beginning of the conversation, I said, tell me about where you are, what's your position, what's your policy, how did you get there? And she mentioned that it was kind of a feeling of guilt, that there weren't very many trans women around, that they really, really wanted to play with the women, and she felt a bit guilty if she wasn't going to let them do that. Now, we might have a view on that, but because she obviously didn't know what the women thought. But some of the women probably felt a bit the same pressure to just be kind. By the end of our conversation, she volunteered this. She said, I don't feel guilt anymore. And her sport in England changed its policy and is now completely protected in the female category. Yeah. And I will mention that she then moved on to a bigger sport where we expect to see some change. So, yeah. So I just want maybe a little bit as a counter and a bit of hope for Ro.
Yeah.
And we know too that these sports that, you know, in different sports, different national governing bodies are very influential at the international level. Yeah, so a change in just a couple of countries can be a catalyst, first upwards and across and down. So that's why we're going to win. Yeah.